Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
This here is Antonio Gwynn. He is 18 years old. He is a senior in high school, and he lives in Buffalo, New York. And like many of us, he was watching all of the unrest that has been going on the last week and saw a lot of the damage that was happening in Buffalo. And he decided it was time for action. Now, if you've watched any sort of news, you probably have heard that we are at war. And I think that's actually true, but it's not the kind of war that we've been led to believe. It's not a war between races. It's not a war between political parties. It is not a war between people who call soda pop and people who call pop soda. It is a war between light and darkness. That's what it is. I can't help but think every time I see the people fighting and being angry and nervous and frustrated and hurt. We talked about that last week, that hurt people hurt people. And a lot of us are afraid, and we've been afraid for months now between the pandemic and all of the stuff that we see happening all around us. And what we really are in right now is a battle between light and darkness. And understanding that is the key to victory. Makes me kind of sad when I see all the people coming on the news talking about different things that need to be done, different actions that need to be taken. And the one thing that they always leave out is probably the most important thing. It's the one thing that you can do when you feel helpless and hopeless, but want to make a difference. It's the thing that works when you're afraid. It even works when you're angry. It works every single time it's tried, even if it doesn't turn out the way we may have hoped. You might be wondering, what in the world am I referring to? I'm talking about prayer. That's right, prayer. In this war that we are in, prayer is the most powerful weapon that we have. Now, if you're not the praying type, that's okay. If everything in your life is going dandy, that's totally cool. This might be a good time to grab a soda. It will only take a few minutes. But for those of you who understand the power of this thing, I encourage all of us, I implore all of us to be more fervent in our prayer, to double down. We need to pray harder. We need to pray more genuinely, more often, and we need to pray first. I don't know about you, but sometimes prayer is sort of like a last resort for me. When I think, I can figure this out, I know how to do this, I got it, and then everything blows up, things burn down, and I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should maybe pray. I don't know how pray works. It's above my pay grade. All I know is that when we pray, good things happen. When we pray, impossible things suddenly become possible. And that's what we need more of than we've ever had before. Now, the cool thing about prayer is it's very versatile. It's sort of like a Swiss Army knife, a spiritual Swiss Army knife. You can pray for our leaders and our politicians. You can pray for good ideas, like what is something I can do to make this community better or make this problem I'm dealing with better. You can pray for peace. You can pray for patience, for justice, for wisdom, for grace, for understanding, for self-control. And frankly, we need all of that stuff right now. Here's another neat thing about prayer. You don't have to know some secret words for it to work. Sometimes we get caught up. There's a little bit of a misunderstanding that like, well, I don't know how to do it right. I don't know if I'm saying the right words. There is no wrong way to do it. In fact, the easiest thing, and all you really have to do, is to turn to God and say the perfect one-word prayer. Help. Help me to know what to do. Help me to know what to say. Help me to love my enemies. That last one's kind of hard, isn't it? The whole love your enemies thing. I mean, it's really easy for us to kind of ward ourselves off from the people we disagree with and kind of only hang out and talk to and listen to like the people who agree the same things we agree. Because the other people, the others, they're obviously misinformed, ignorant, and possibly evil incarnate. But what if? What would happen if you went to the timeline of your arch rival on Facebook? What would happen? The one I'm talking about is the one that always is leaving the snide comments, the holier than thou proclamations, the stupid memes. What if you went to their timeline and posted something like this? Something that was like, we don't always agree. We don't often agree on many things. But I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate the passion you have for this issue, whatever the issue is, right? I really appreciate the passion you have for this issue, and I appreciate that you're trying to make the world better. That's it. That's it. What if that's all you did? What if you knew where that person actually lived? Maybe they work at your office. What if you included what you were going to write in a status update? And what if you put it in a card? What if in that card you put a gift card to Starbucks or some other favorite place of theirs? Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you have to agree with them. They may be completely wrong. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. And I'm not saying that you have to do some sort of Vulcan mind trick to try to convince them they're wrong in some subtle, subliminal message sort of way. Like, that ruins the whole thing. Just notice one redeeming quality about that person and tell them. And it might not have to do about anything to do with the issues that you might be conflicted about. It might be something like this. You might say, you know what? I have no idea how difficult it must be to be a single parent. But you seem to be really doing a good job. I can tell that you really love your kids. What would happen if you wrote that? What would happen if you said that? I'll tell you what would happen. What you've done is you've tapped into the amazing universal power of reciprocity. Reciprocity is when you give something without any regard for getting something back. When you give something good, good comes back. You can call it karma. You can call it reaping what you sow. I don't care what you call it, but it is true and it's real. And I think we need a little bit more of that. And so the prescription I have for all of us, including myself, right? I am a professional reminderer, and I need these reminders just as much as anyone. Do something this week that's insanely generous for someone you disagree with or don't particularly like. That's the other kind of magical thing about prayer, is that we can offer up actions as prayer. We can offer up chores we hate or tasks that are difficult as a form of prayer. And sometimes I think that's the best kind of prayer, the prayer of self-sacrifice. I know of a priest in our community who is planning a prayer walk to lead a community of people downtown where a lot of the protests have been happening. And he's been very clear. He says, this is not to protest. This is not to protest the protesters. This is simply to pray. This is to push out the darkness. That's what this is. That's to him. That's what this is pushing out the darkness. That's what we need to do. And that is what pray can be used for, is to push out the darkness. Which brings me back to Antonio. So Antonio in Buffalo, New York, watched on the news all of the stuff that was happening. And he saw Bailey Avenue, which is a local street in his community, one of the main thoroughfares, saw that it was covered with glass and garbage. And he realized that people would need to use that road to get to work the next morning. And so Antonio got himself a broom, got himself some trash bags, and at 2 o'clock in the morning went out to start cleaning up. He didn't stop for 10 hours. That morning, a bunch of neighborhood people got together, organized a cleanup crew, And when they got on the scene, they realized that Antonio had already done most of the work. Well, word spread. And this guy, Matt, happened to see the story on the news, and he looked up Antonio's Facebook page and saw that he was asking advice about car buying. And so Matt decided to donate and give his 2004 Mustang convertible to Antonio. It was a car that he had wanted to have for a long time, and Matt had it, and he realized that he didn't really drive it as much as he thought he would, and so he gave it to Antonio. Well, it was kind of cool, and Matt had no way of knowing this, but Antonio's mom, who passed away in 2018, she drove a red convertible. Well, then an insurance agent heard about this news and decided that their insurance agency would donate a year's worth of car insurance for Antonio's new car. A local college in Buffalo heard that he was saving up money for college. They gave Antonio a full scholarship to study business, which he will be starting this fall. His goal, one of his many career goals, is to open a cleaning business. You guys, we are at war with the dark side, which has convinced us that we're at war with one another. We're not. The good news, I do have some good news here. Just like the Wicked Witch of the West, who dissolved upon contact with water, the dark side has a fatal weakness as well. You know what it is? Light. When we shine our light to help others, especially when we shine our light to help others we disagree with or don't even like, our happiness grows. When we share our light, goodness comes back to us. When we share our light, good things happen and the universe rewards us, and God smiles down upon us. We may be at war, but we have the most powerful weapon at our disposal, and that is prayer. It is my belief that God can take evil and use it for good, and that is the opportunity that we have, is to use that tool we've been given to actually make a real difference. Because the reality is, it's not us that is making the difference. It's what happens when we are humble enough to say that we don't know all the answers. We don't know exactly what we're supposed to do. But we say, help. Help me see what I can do. Help me to know what to say. Help me to love my enemies. In this battle between light and darkness, the darkness does not stand a chance. Shine on.